Joining us to start this hour, however, is Senator Mike Rounds. He's the Republican from South Dakota, member of Armed Services and Appropriations Committees, among others. Senator Rounds, always good to have you. Thanks for coming on. Now, if we could start with the shutdown. We were just having the previous conversation about that. You know, it says at the bottom of the screen that lawmakers are bracing for an extended shutdown. Where are you on this? Keep hearing people saying this could be the longest one we've ever had. Is that how it feels to you?
We're not sure how it ends, but I think most of us have decided that nothing will even start in terms of negotiations until after this weekend. Our Democrat colleagues have got some real big protests lined up across the entire country, and it seemed fairly certain that they would not do much in terms of negotiations until after they were done with these nationwide protests that are basically anti-Trump protests. Once they get a chance to get that behind them, then I think next week there's a possibility that we'll be able to start having discussions, Republicans with Republicans, Democrats with Democrats, about possible ways out. Informal talks will continue, one person or one-on-one between Republicans and Democrats about possible ways out of it. But bottom line is until we get the shutdown behind us, talks about additional legislation and so forth really won't happen.
Yeah, I was having a conversation just a few minutes ago with Senator Patty Murray, of course, the Democrat from Washington State, about some of this and, you know, negotiations and when they should happen and health care and the rest. And here's part of what she said.
President Trump seems absolutely focused on hurting as many people as possible. We are actually trying to work with our Republican counterparts to help people who are seeing their health insurance premiums double, triple, or even quadruple. That is what we are focused on. And I would just say to the president, he is talking about it that way, but what he is actually doing is hurting everyone, red, blue, in between.
When she says that, and I want to ask you, Senator, your thoughts on this. She's alluding to the president, and he has made direct comments in this regard, saying, we're going to cut programs that we don't like. We're going to cut at what he describes as Democrat agencies. What about that strategy during the shutdown from the President of the United States?
Look, the bottom line is we wouldn't have strategies in terms of saving money if it wasn't for the shutdown. And if we weren't in the middle of a shutdown, there'd be ongoing negotiations about how we address some of the issues that Senator Murray cares about. It's things that we care about as well, and that is Obamacare has been a failed system. And the fact that the costs of Obamacare have exploded is the reason why our Democrat colleagues put these additional supplemental benefits in, or payments in, with a reconciliation process when President Biden was in office. Now it's expiring. They had the opportunity at that time to put them out permanently. They decided not to do it. They set it up for an expiration this December. Because of that expiration, that additional subsidy is not going in to help offset some of the Obamacare direct costs. This is not President Trump causing this problem. This is literally a failed Obamacare product that has been propped up by these additional subsidies. What we said is we know that there are people out there that are getting hurt because Obamacare has failed. We want to help, but you can't do that by simply saying we'll continue down the same path. So we'd like to work with them, but we're not going to start this discussion when they put us into a shutdown that was absolutely not necessary. We had appropriation bills ready to come to the Senate floor, bipartisan in nature. And we could have had most of them done by now. We could have had close to 85% of the entire government funded for the next year in bipartisan legislation. So we don't understand why they did it in the first place. And now that it has occurred, it's limiting our time to actually address a lot of the problems that they and us feel should have been addressed with regard to modifications to the Obamacare product that people through no fault of their own have been forced to accept.
Right.
The rest of the market is basically not there anymore.
Two quick questions, if I may, Senator, on foreign policy before we let you go. I want to talk about Ukraine ahead of Friday, but before I do that, on this effort to combat the drug cartels, the war on drugs, and going after the boats near Venezuela, the president last hour said the following. Watch.
But they are given information that they were loaded up with drugs, and that's the thing that matters. When they're loaded up with drugs, they're fair game. And every one of those ships they're not ships, they're boats, they're speedboats. They're extremely fast, record-setting type speedboats. They cost a lot of money, and they have a lot of money because they're drug sellers.
What would you say about targeting these so-called drug boats and whether it's fair game, as the president says?
We've had a classified briefing put on on behalf of the Armed Services Committee by folks within the Pentagon, and we asked him for some additional information with regard to the legal opinions and so forth that have been used in order to authorize these strikes. We haven't received that yet. We'd like to see that before we actually make comments regarding the legality of it. But the one thing we do know, we want those drugs out of the United States. And we know that the president wants those drugs out of the United States. And so the end result, are we pleased with the fact that some of those drug runners are gone now? Yes. But we want to make sure that we're doing it according to international law. What we don't have yet are the legal arguments that were made and that these actions are based upon. So we'll withhold some of that judgment until we actually get that information that we have requested.
But you must have had questions about that legality if you requested that information, correct?
We simply wanted to know what was the legal basis, show us what it was, and we have not had that delivered to us yet. We recognize that they may very well want to keep it confidential, but we think as an oversight committee, part of our job is to ask those hard questions. There's no reason for us to believe that they don't have it, but we want to see it. We think that's part of our job.
Okay, finally, what would you say about your level of optimism about peace in Ukraine after what was obviously achieved in Gaza? And do you think the president should be sending the Ukrainians some Tomahawk missiles?
You know, I think peace through strength is probably the best message out there. President Zelensky will be back in town again at the end of this week. We hope that he has a very successful meeting with the President of the United States. We think President Trump is recognizing that President Putin has no real desire to stop the war. And I think President Trump has tried everything that he can think of to peacefully resolve this issue. But one of the areas that may very well make a difference to Mr. Putin is the fact that if we provide them with Tomahawk missiles that could be launched from land-based systems, that might very well make him wake up and realize that this is not going to go down easy and that probably it's time to take a second look at whether or not he could ever win that war. But I think we need to stand very strong with Ukraine and send a message to Mr. Putin that he is in the wrong, that this is his problem, that he caused it, and that we believe and we will stand with the people of Ukraine.
Senator Mike Rounds, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.